There are also questions over what the royal family is going to do with Andrew this Christmas, because it seems very unlikely that the former Duke will be invited to King Charles's family celebration on the Sandringham estate.
Oh, no, absolutely. And we always say he's not going to be invited around at the Monopoly table. This is what the ruthless Prince William, as we called him, basically, he got his wish. They were reminded daily about how uncomfortable he felt at the Duchess of Kent's funeral when Andrew was trying to sidle up to him and try to exchange a few words. And I know quite a few lip readers who can tell you what they really said under his breath. But the reality is, no, they are desperate to get away from Andrew. They're desperate. No one wants to be seen with him. So the concern is this: his Christmas nightmares. Basically, the daughters might ditch dad for Sandringham. We'll see what happens on that sort of basis. And he could be left in solitude. So those close to him are saying, well, where's he going to spend Christmas? Last year, they spent it together. His daughters went off to their own family members, to their husbands' families, effectively. But Fergie will probably go off somewhere hot. And Andrew could well be left alone eating a meal for one bought from the local supermarket.
And what about Princess Beatrice, Princess Eugenie? It's unlikely that they'll be celebrating with their parents as well.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. They are basically still in the throes of this sort of terrible scandal. And what's happened is that the king has made it clear, look, he doesn't want them to be tarnished. They might have this Yuletide U-turn, if you like. They won't have the Sandringham snub that Andrew's going to get. And I think they could very well be welcomed into the fold. And that would be a good thing. As I say, it's only a few weeks before Christmas. I know Christmas decorations are up already in London, quite scandalous that they do it so early. But what's happening is last year they spent it with their respective partners, their husbands, families. This year, I would absolutely expect them to be seen in Sandringham, which will be the king's gesture to say, look, the poor princesses shouldn't be punished in this way for the sins of their father.
Now, Prince William has opened up about the challenges of answering questions from his young children amid his wife's battle with cancer. Prince William opened up to a Brazilian TV show host last week about how he was handling those questions during such a difficult time. Can you tell us a bit more about what he had to say?
Well, it's very easy for us to sort of say, well, this is it. You've got this sort of stuff, very matter of fact. The reality is there are 3 small children who've been shielded from a lot of the disasters. And William has made it very clear in the various interviews, and you and I have spoken about this previously as well, is that he wants them to lead normal lives. But he also is trying to handle how they deal with this horrible news about their mother's diagnosis. And as he says, there's no manual for heartbreak, and he's guiding George, Charlotte and Louis through their mother's battle. Basically, as you say, there was the Rio chat show host, Luciano Huck, which William sat down with him just before the Earthshot prize and bared a brutal strain, that's what he called it, a brutal strain of fielding his kids' raw questions on Kate's diagnosis. And basically she's now in remission, but George, who's 12, Charlotte, 10, and Louis, 7, they want straight talk. They're basically trying to sort of ditch the secrecy for oversharing honesty and hiding stuff. This is what William says, hiding stuff doesn't work. He wants to give them the bigger picture, but also to say, look, they're united as a family to try and cope through these difficult times. But he says, look, there's no parent playbook, if you like, for the panic. It's instinct over instruction, and it's a vulnerable peak, if you like, at royal resilience.
Now, Prince George has been increasingly in the spotlight this year. There's already speculation that he's entering this next chapter of royal training. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Oh, it's totally a fair assessment. 12 years old, he is the king in waiting, as we say. Once William, he's next after him. And basically, he's being introduced to a number of these major events. We saw him making a milestone debut at the Royal Albert Hall, the glorious Royal Albert Hall Festival of Remembrance over the weekend. He strode into the royal box. Obviously, the king was there with the Queen, and it was a poised pivot, signalling his grooming, if you like, as a future monarch. And experts basically say, look, we're going to see more and more of him stepping forward with these duties. He was very good, for example, on VE Day. He talked to some of the veterans there and was very empathetic. He spoke to a 101-year-old veteran about how difficult it was. And the vet turned to Prince William and said, you must be very proud. He's doing this very well at this VE Day tea party. He's also been to football matches and so on and so forth with his father, so he's a regular there. And basically, he wants to sort of work on the premise that we're going to groom him to be the future monarch. Now, Prince William himself had quite a shock when he was found out that he was destined to be king, because he found out from his schoolmates. He wasn't really told much at home. Diana was very keen to sort of shield him away and so on and so forth. But what happened, he sort of discovered it in that sort of unguarded moment at school that he was the future king. What William wants to do, what Princess Catherine wants to do, is to break the news in their own way, what they call a controlled moment of their choice, rather than let him find out through his school friends. So that's going to happen. He's obviously been a familiar face for a number of times. You might remember those wonderful moments on his second birthday, just before his second birthday in 2015. He joined his great-grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, on the balcony at Buckingham Palace for the Trooping of the Colour. He was also seen down under in New Zealand, as just a few months old, when that's his very, very first public appearance. But we can expect to see more of him, and he certainly, from what I've seen so far, is filling that role very, very well.